It's 5:30, so we'll call to order this meeting for Monday, December 5th. Jordan, would you start us off with the roll call?
Please respond by stating present. Councilmember Ronayne.
Present.
Faubourg.
Present.
Liebelt.
Present.
Reif.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Reinbold.
Present.
Langer.
Present.
Norvstrup.
Present.
Mayor Schonman.
Present. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. First order of business will be to approve this week's agenda as printed in the handouts. I would take a motion.
I'll move it.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilwoman Liebelt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion does carry. Next, we've got our approval of the minutes for the meeting that we had on November 28th. To entertain a motion to approve those minutes, if someone was so inclined.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Councilman Reif. Does anyone have any changes or updates? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion does carry. We'll move on to our open forum where we do have one guest speaker here today. It's Representative Carl Perry. Represents us in Pierre. Representative, make sure your little green light is on. He's here to talk to us a little bit about budget. So welcome. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, the one item is pages and the other item is budget. The pages part, I just thought this might be interesting to everybody in Aberdeen. The pages that are coming down to Pierre this year are Samantha Hagee, she's a senior at Aberdeen Central High School. Alexander Cutler, she's a junior and she's homeschooled. She would be over by Claremont. Abediah George, and he's Aberdeen Central High School, a senior. And Brianna Woolman, she's a junior and she's Aberdeen Central High School. And then for the Senate, there was a guy in the paper with rounds recently, two of them side by side. One of those two is going to be a page over in the Senate, and that's Dustin Hermanison, and he'll work with Al Norstrup. So those are some of the real good success stories. These guys will have a chance to learn the legislative process. They'll be able to work together. They'll be able to have some stories to tell their kids and their kids' kids. They may be your future politicians. And the other people that we're going down tomorrow for the budget hearing. And I've been asked several questions about the budget. I'll know more tomorrow after 1 o'clock. But I don't know too much now other than the governor is going to give her budget predictions and her numbers and all that tomorrow. So when I get that, if you're interested in hearing more, I'll tell you more. Thank you.
Thanks for the update, Carl. Thanks for joining us. Look forward to learning about that state budget. We rely on those guys pretty heavily, as it turns out. We'll move along to our consent calendar, where we've got two items of business. We've got a retail liquor license as well as a lottery notice. Would entertain a motion.
Moved. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Does anyone have any discussion on the council on either of these items? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
I abstain.
Shoot, we have one abstention of Councilman Norvstrup. If you make note of that, please. And then the motion does pass nonetheless. We'll move along to our old business, where we've got a possible second reading and a final adoption of ordinance 221101, which sets fees, charges for certain services provided by the city of Aberdeen. Jordan introduced us to that last meeting. Jordan, thank you for following up with some clarification on that. Anything new?
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes. I did change the appearance slightly to track those changes. Staff recommends approval.
Move approval.
Second.
I've got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilwoman Liebelt. Anyone on the council with any items of particular question or statements to be made on these? All right, then Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ronayne.
Aye.
Faubourg.
Aye.
Liebelt.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Norvstrup.
Aye.
Mayor Schonman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we'll move along to our new business segment where we will first discuss the possible approval of excess animal foster care policy, which is required by the Aberdeen City Code, Section 8-44. City Attorney Ron Wigger will tell us about the details of this. Ron?
Thank you, Mayor Schoeneman. The language of the policy is very clear to make sure that everybody understands we're talking about excess animal foster care. Right now, we know that our Aberdeen Area Humane Society and the Brown County Pet Rescue League are all offering animal foster services currently. So this is not going to affect any of that. What the new policy does is an extension of 8-44, which allows for an excess animals to be fostered within a home. Right now, under current ordinance, the total animals that are allowed are 4 animals, not more than 3 dogs. The proposed policy would allow an additional creature in excess of that limitation, so that would be 5 animals total, not more than 4 dogs. And we have tried to make it clear that, again, while we all love animals and encourage them responsibly cared for within the city, it becomes a tipping point when you get too many animals in a particular home. So the policy does provide only 1 excess animal. It does also require that an animal, to our knowledge, have been born and raised in Brown County. Requires that the animal foster service share legal responsibility with the caregiver for any violations. I can tell you that after having visited a couple times with the board at the Humane Society, they are in support of the proposed policy. I did reach out to the Brown County Pet Rescue League and did provide them with the policy. I've not heard any response from them. But with that, then staff would recommend approval of the policy.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilwoman Langer and a second from Councilman Johnson. Any questions from the council? Or Elaine, I see you're here. Anything from the Humane Society's vantage point? Sounds good. Anyone from the council? Go ahead.
Just a
Councilman
question
Johnson.
for clarification, why the animal must have lived in Brown County during its entire lifetime?
This kind of takes us into the discussions that we have sometimes regarding our animal review board. But again, because we're talking about an excess animal, we're talking about homes that will have 4 dogs, let's say, as opposed to 3. And again, those are always a neighbor problem. That's not so much the loving home, it's the impact that it has on the neighbors. And so for that reason, we didn't want to be creating solutions that aren't our problems. So for example, bringing in animals from outside of Brown County and now wanting to pack them into a home that already is at the limit. Mm-hmm. They can still do that. They can still bring an animal from out Brown County, just put it in a foster home that doesn't have the limits. And again, that was a conversation that we had the first night, I remember, with the Humane Society board, and once that explanation was made, they were very satisfied with that.
Okay. I'm sure the public is curious, as was I. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Mr. Mayor, is there a time limit? I can't remember, Ron. I read through it pretty quickly. Can you explain the time limit?
There is a maximum of 90 days in a quarter, in a 4-month period, let's say. So depending on how a foster family was doing, they could conceivably have fostered animals for 3/4 of the year. But that gives the neighbors a break from those excess number of animals.
Thanks.
And did those numbers come about through some discussion on that in particular?
Again, I did actually take the first draft off of a model foster care program, and I'm not sure where I got that. But I do know that I ran that past the Humane Society, and they understood and were fine.
Sounds good. If there's no more questions from council, Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote on the first reading of this, I guess this would be a final approval of this policy, please.
Councilmember Norvstrup,
Aye.
Langer, Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Fauberg,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thank you for joining us, Elaine. Next, we've got the possible approval of a change order labeled number 1 in the amount of a negative $4,322.86, as well as a payment number 2 in the amount of $48,733.48 to Jensen Rock and Sand for work on the old Highway 281 overlay improvements, and city engineer Robin Bobzien will tell us about that. Robin?
As you can see, the work is completed, and what we're requesting tonight is to do the final adjustments on pay items in order to reconcile everything with what the contractor actually installed in the field. Project went well, and there were very minor adjustments. Mostly it was in the tack oil that we ended up doing a little bit less tack oil. Other than that, everything was pretty much right on quantity. So we recommend approval of the final change order and the final pay request.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne, a second from Councilman Rife, and I know there's been a little bit of a discussion about that intersection between the two paved areas that we had completed. That's a future project, inevitably.
Inevitably. It's a lot more complicated if we start doing overlays on it. It would be a fine candidate for doing a roundabout or some kind of traffic signal removal because of the skew. I'm just not quite brave enough to enter into that yet.
Go for it.
And so then where this project stops on the northern end, does that immediately pick up to become the state's jurisdiction on that road, or do we still have a little segment there?
We've got a little segment there that goes up to the traffic signal, and that's where the state takes over. However, that is brand new concrete, so we did not overlay that because of the age.
Sounds great. Got our motion, we've got our second. Any other questions or comments from the council? Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ronayne.
Aye.
Fauberg.
Aye.
Liebelt.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Norvstrup.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our possible approval of a change order labeled number 2 in the amount of a negative $81,903.14, as well as a payment labeled number 6 in the amount of $223,432.30 to Reedy Construction for work on the North Dakota Street roadway improvements. And again, Mr. Bobzien, what can you tell us?
You can see the general adjustments between the bid items. You'll see that we ended up doing more 6-inch concrete work on some of the bike path. Instead of 5-inch, you'll see those quantities pretty well offset. But a lot of the things that we did have increased adjustments on were, let's say, the asphalt patching, where we had to go back further just to make sure that we took care of all the potholes and grade adjustments to make this a nice smooth transition into the roadway. That project too went fairly well. The increased adjustments for a lot of this were due to adding some sanitary sewer into it and a little bit of storm sewer to make things work right when we got done, because we don't want to go back into that road again for the foreseeable future. So some of those adjustments were made after we figured out conditions. So we recommend approval of the two, and we will have one final pay request in the spring after we've gotten all the seating and all those things finalized.
Move to approve the payment and change order.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Any questions for the city engineer? Jordan?
Councilmember Norvstrup.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Liebelt.
Aye.
Fauberg.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Finally, we have our review and approval of our claims and payroll, the bill list for December 5th, as well as a pay period for November 20th through December 3rd, and the associated costs that go along with paying employees. Jordan, would you give us, or I guess I'd take a motion.
So moved.
I'll second that.
A motion from Councilman Rife and a second from Councilwoman Liebelt. Jordan, would you give us a roll call on these bills and payroll claims?
Councilmember Ronayne.
I abstain on payments to Plains Commerce Bank and Dakota Bank, but as to the balance, I vote aye.
Councilmember Fauberg.
I abstain from payments to Dakota Bank, otherwise aye.
Councilmember Liebelt.
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Norvstrup,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Abstain to payments to Ag Tegra and Dakota Bank, otherwise aye, and motion does carry. And we will move along to our city manager's report. Joe, what have you got for us this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. Last week, I emailed you the evaluation forms. Here at the end of the year, all employees go through an evaluation with their supervisor. And for myself, the city attorney, and the finance officer, you're our immediate supervisors. So we ask that you each compile one of those, send them to the mayor, and then we'll have a review session with each of us in January. And we've done that the last few years. I think it's been helpful for all of us. And then something if that's the most pleasant thing we can talk about, it's employee evaluations today. On Friday, the IT staff noticed that there was some issues with some of our emails and how they're hosted. And the solution was to change how all of our emails are hosted. And so if you've been sending emails to city employees over the last couple of days and they've totally ignored you, it's because several of us, including myself, are down. And now as of this afternoon, as they started the migration, everybody's down. But that should be done through the night. So in front of you, you have instructions as how the email addresses will stay the same. It's just you need to change your mode of doing that. So they're pretty self-explanatory, but if you need a little help, you could call our office and we could get you in contact with IT or talk you through it. But throughout the night tonight, we should see everything resolve itself. We're hoping so.
And since it's a different email server, Joe, moving from Rackspace to Outlook, will that transition all the prior emails over to the new system?
It appears that they're trying that, and it looks like it's going to be successful. The IT staff is concerned about saying yes, but that's exactly the attempt. And Jordan, I don't know if you know anything more, but our IT staff's done a good job with this, but it's been a little unnerving. So we trust that they're doing the right thing, and we appreciate that work they're doing. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else before we move to adjourn this meeting? Go ahead,
Can I
Councilwoman.
just ask for an update on the airport and the flights? Has anything changed there? Any effort been made to try and bring
You
it
know,
back?
I appreciate that. One thing we did, we talked about it last week. We kind of launched this public news because it was going official at the end of the week, and we asked for public comment. So both the newspaper and Hub City Radio who are here, they did a nice job covering. We're getting some coverage tonight on the Dakota News Now broadcast. Rich and I are on there talking about it again. We're getting some feedback that will be helpful for us. We expect more because our plan is about 2-3 weeks into this of the first month. They said it was 2 months, is to be able to show them the impact, the negative impact this has had on people that fly. And some of you in this group are business travels, and we've heard your concerns. We're going to share this with them in hopes of making sure this doesn't become permanent. If they do, even after they hear our ploys to go permanent, we're going to have to take a stronger approach on this. But we encourage the public to, if you are affected by this, if you personally have to change your schedule or having difficulties because of these changes, we've seen a couple changes now in the last couple months. We need to hear from you, and we have lots of ways to do that, but we need to hear from you so we can share those. That'll be the best way to make a change in the future.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question on the airport as well.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Actually, correct me, I just want to make sure I understand the process on how we get the service we get. We put out a request for bid, correct, on our partners?
We do not.
Okay.
That's the thing is this is done between, it's a proposal that comes out from the federal government. This is through the FAA and in particular the US DOT. They do a contract. It's their contract. We're simply the site and the recipient of that. So it's not a contract that the city has any involvement.
Because I didn't feel like we had any wiggle room. That's what I was trying to remember.
That's been the
just kind of
problem
was like, this is what you get, kind of thing.
But with this, they're not living up to their contract, and the contract allows that if you don't do all your flights, you don't get the full subsidy. But I think again, after they make these changes, and what probably the good news is, we're not the only ones affected by this. So if they make this changes to several, and then we reach out to our federal representatives and say, hey, you know, we need your help. We need you to hold these people accountable to their contract. Then that's the path forward to this. But no, it's not a contract with the city.
Mr. Mayor?
And there had been one applicant, correct, last time?
There was a second one last time around. They were the most receptive.
Okay, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Should we go to the federal government now then? Are you in conversations with Senator Thune and Senator Rounds and Representative Johnson?
They're
On our
aware of
behalf?
it. We haven't shown them any of the results because, again, it just started. So our plan is we want to show them too the same things. Here's what we're hearing, and we need these flights back because of this. Not just we want these flights back because we want them. We'll have actually real testimony from citizens that say this is what's happened to us.
Okay.
I would take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I will make that motion.
Thanks, Rob. I have a motion from Councilman Ronayne, a second from Councilman Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.